we're going to go ahead and get this party started. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. You're here to understand CALPADS Report 1621. This is our report for monitoring for students with disabilities that shows students with late plan reviews and reevaluation. I am Brandy Howdigi, and I am the IT supervisor for the Data Evaluation and Analysis Unit at the California Department of Education. I did bring some of my team members, so Joseph Tan from the Data Evaluation and Analysis Unit, as well as Milo New, and she's also with DEA. And then, of course, we also have our colleagues from CSIS. So Alex Manriquez is joining us, and we will very likely see a couple of other folks from CSIS join us, Meredith Roberson from the requirements team at CSIS, and potentially Martha Friedrich from the client services team. So thank you all for being here. After this webinar, if you have questions and they're CALPADS related, we urge you to submit a service ticket, and you can either do that directly through CALPADS, or you can send an email to calpads-support@cde.ca.gov. If you have a program-related question or something that is policy-related, please send an email to speddatasupport@cde.ca.gov, and one of my team members will be happy to respond to that email. You can download the slide deck. Milo just posted the link to the presentation in the chat box, so you can download the presentation at the link. It is also included in the slide deck in case you have to reference back to it at some point in time. So please feel free to bookmark that link, and that will get you to the presentation. Now, some of you may not have ever accessed the CDE box link. And one of the things that typically happens when people try to do that for the first time is there's a little dialog box that pops up and says, hey, while you're waiting for your materials to download, why don't you create a box account? You do not have to do that. You just have to give it a little bit of time, and your documents will download. These documents can be viewed by anybody with the link. You don't have to create an account. All right, I am going to be using lots of acronyms today, so those of you that aren't really a part of the SPED realm, and I'm talking to any CALPADS administrators that may have joined us today, these are all of the acronyms that we're going to be talking, or that I'm going to be using. So anytime you see SWD, that's Students with Disabilities, SEDS, Special Education Data System. So you may also hear me refer to SEDS vendors. Okay, so what I mean by that is SAFE, Cyrus, Welligent, Web IEP, Synergy, Power School, any of those vendors that actually capture electronic IEP information. Student Information System, we've got lots of them in California, ARIES, Infinite Campus, Power School, Synergy, etc. IEP, Individualized Education Program, ISP, Individualized Service Plan, IFSP, Individualized Family Service Plan. And then we've got our new file types, SWDs, Students with Disability Status file. Meetings file is the MEET, M-E-E-T. Plan file is the Special Education Plan file. And then finally, you'll hear me say LEA a lot, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with that acronym. Oops, empty slide. Sorry about that. All right, so the purpose of Report 1621. Okay, again, we're looking at late plan reviews and reevaluations. So there are a couple of specific sections of the Code of Federal Regulations for IDEA. So sections 300.324 and section 300.303 that require local educational agencies to, number one, review a student's IEP at least once annually. Okay, it has to happen at least once annually. And then secondly, reevaluate a student's eligibility for special education at least once every 3 years. Now, Report 16.21 identifies students in two overarching categories. Were they compliant in terms of having timely meetings? or were they non-compliant, meaning that the meetings were overdue or were held and there was no justifiable reason why that meeting was not held in a timely fashion. These reports can now be found in 2 different places depending on the role that you have assigned to your account. Okay, so there is a SELPA level version of this report, and that SELPA level version can actually be found in the SELPA reports menu. Now keep in mind that many SELPA level users also have LEA level access. So depending on which report you're trying to look at and which role you've selected in CALPADS, you may have to go to different places to find that report. So if you're logged in as a SELPA level user, you would go to the SELPA reports menu and you could look at a SELPA view. If you are logged in as an LEA level user, you will have to go to the accountability and monitoring report section of the reports menu to see this particular report, okay? If you only have an LEA level user account, the only place you're going to be able to find it is in the accountability monitoring report section of the reports menu. All right, so first of all, CISA's put together a wonderful report mapping guide for Report 1621. The report mapping guide is great because it tells you all of the selection criteria. How do those students appear on those reports? What do all of the columns mean? How are the calculations done for the monitoring categories? All of that information is in the reports mapping guide. So that is, I highly encourage you to take a look at that particular link and download, or excuse me, bookmark that information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop it in the chat really quickly. The report mapping guide can be found there. And if you guys bookmark it, you'll have an easy reference point to come back to as you start actually looking at these reports. So this report was released on February 13th, 2024. And the students that appear in this report are students, number 1, that are enrolled as of the report date. Remember, this is called an operational data store report. One of the most frequently asked questions we get is, how often does this report refresh? How often is it updated? And the answer to that question is, as often as your CALPADS administrator is submitting enrollments, and as often as you are submitting meeting and plan information to CALPADS. Okay, so when those 2 activities are happening on an ongoing basis within your LEA, the report can actually update every single day, and actually multiple times a day, because a lot of these edits happen once records are posted into CALPADS. They happen in almost near real time in this particular report. So they have to be enrolled in your LEA as of the report date. They have to have a primary, short-term, or non-ADA enrollment status 50 enrollment. Just as a caveat, you will notice we did see a recent defect where we're seeing secondary enrollments in this report. You can ignore any secondarily enrolled students that are in this report. Okay, so that is a known issue. A defect is being written up on that, just to make you aware. The students in this report should be grades preschool, pre-kindergarten, and TK through 12. You should not see infants on this report. Ooh, sorry about that. I don't know how that happened. All right, the most recent special education status, their SWDs file, also has to indicate that the student is eligible and participating, regardless of LEA. Okay, so the LEA that is assigned to that SWDs record, as long as the student has a status of eligible and participating, it doesn't matter which LEA submitted it, because that status actually follows the student no matter where they go. Okay, you should also note that any students that were exited with an E155 or an E156 enrollment exit in CALPADS will appear on this report, and we're going to talk about that in a little more detail. E155 and E156 are enrollment exits that give CALPADS and the state an indication that the student was expected to return the following academic year. And so therefore, we have them on these monitoring reports because your LEA is technically still on the hook for them unless they transfer out of your district. And E-155 and E-156 that tells us that the student is expected to return. Last year, we had two reports. We had an aggregate level report, 16.7, and a student level report, 16.8. So this is one of the reports that will replace report 16.7 and 16.8. So the first change, fundamental change, is that there is no aggregate level report anymore. It is only a student level list. 1621 is a student level list. Also, folks, I do see that some of you are writing questions in the chat. If you could place those questions in the Q&A so that we're sure to address them, I absolutely will address those questions when we get to the Q&A section. Okay, secondly, 1621 is only looking at late plan reviews and late reevaluations. Okay, it is not looking at late initial evaluations. We have another report that's expected to come out very soon that will show you late initial evaluations and students who did not have their initial evaluations by their third birthday if they were served on Part C. Okay. All of the data that you see in this report is primarily sourced from the MEET file, the Special Education Meetings file. Additionally, we have some information that's pulled in from the Special Education Plan file. And then, of course, the student enrollment file will tell us which students were enrolled in your LEAs on the report as of date. Okay, so we have 7 new monitoring categories, which I'm going to cover in detail. All right, so how does report 16.21 calculate overdue meetings? Okay, a meeting that has not been held yet that is considered overdue. So number one, the student has to have a status of eligible and participating in CALPADS. That's really important. And what it does is it identifies the most recent meeting record for each meeting type based on the as of date. Okay, so it'll identify the most recent plan review, the most recent eligibility reevaluation as of the report date. Okay, so as of 3/5, what would be the most recent record? And then for overdue plan reviews, what it's looking for is a meeting record where the plan review indicator is yes. So if the plan review indicator is yes in that record, it means that their annual plan review occurred during that meeting. And the special education meeting date in that record is greater than 365 days prior to the report as of date. So whatever date that you select for the as of date in that report. And additionally, there's no meeting record with a more recent pending as of date where the meeting delay code is not equal to 90, which is late without cause, or or blank. Okay, so basically what that means is it's overdue if there is no pending record with a justifiable meeting delay. Okay, that is how they select overdue plan reviews. Or another criteria for that is where you had an initial evaluation. Okay, so the student was initially evaluated, and that's the most recent meeting in there, and the meeting date is greater than 365 days prior to the report as of date. Okay, so if the only record in there is an initial and there hasn't been a subsequent plan review and there's no pending record telling us there's a justifiable meeting delay, then that meeting is considered overdue. Very similar for overdue reevaluations. The only difference is it's looking 3 years from the report as of date. So if the most recent record in CALPADS is a reevaluation record that occurred more than 3 years ago, then that's going to trigger an overdue. Also, if there's no pending record in there telling us that there's a justifiable reason for that meeting being overdue, that's when it's going to trigger an overdue monitoring category. And the other scenario is, again, we're looking at initial evaluation. So the expectation is that after initial evaluation, within 3 years, that student's going to be reevaluated for special education eligibility. So if we don't see a subsequent reevaluation record, and if there's no pending record in there telling us why that reevaluation has been delayed and it's a justifiable reason, then that meeting is considered overdue. So once again, folks, please place your questions in the Q&A. Do not place them in the chat. All right, so these are the specific categories for overdue meetings. For overdue meetings, we're talking about meetings that have not been held yet. So all students that land in this category, CALPADS is presuming, based on the data, that the meeting has not been held yet. So we've got overdue plan review with a pending record. Okay, so what that means is their last annual plan review is overdue. It's late based on the meeting date, but there was a pending record submitted up. Unfortunately, that pending record has a meeting delay code that has 90, which is late without cause, or the meeting delay code is blank. Okay, that's why it shows up in that category. Then we've got overdue plan reviews with no pending record. That looks like there's just an annual plan review record in there, and it's greater than 365 days from the report as of date. Same thing for reevaluation, but it's looking 3 years out. So we've got overdue reevaluation with a pending record, and that pending record says that it was not, there wasn't a valid reason for the meeting being late, or the meeting delay code is blank, or the last category is overdue reevaluation with no pending record, which basically means the last reevaluation record is more than 3 years old. That's essentially what it means. Okay, so I just wanted to point out a slight caveat here, and now I lost my train of thought. So I promise I will figure out what I was going to say within the next few minutes, within the next few slides anyway. Okay, so what I wanted to do was give you some examples of what the data look like and how those overdue students will actually show up on these reports. Okay, so here we're going to use an as of date on this report of March 5th, which is today. Okay, so let's say we were running this report today. Example number 1. Well, you can see that the meeting date, and this is for plan reviews, okay, annual plan reviews. So the most recent record in CALPADS is January 14th, 2023. There is no meeting delay code entered, and the plan review indicator is yes. That tells us it's an annual plan review. There's a yes in this plan review indicator field. The reason this is showing up as overdue is because the meeting date is 365 days from the as of date, which is March 5th, 2024. Okay, so this student is going to show up as overdue plan review, no pending record. Okay, this next scenario, you'll see now we have 2 records. We had a plan review that was held on January 14th, 2023, and then the LEA submitted a pending record as of January 14th, 2024, telling us this meeting is pending, but unfortunately, the meeting delay code is 90, which is late without cause. In this case, this gets counted as overdue with pending record because the meeting delay code is 90, late without cause. Here's what I was going to say. These pending records for late plan reviews and late eligibility reevaluation. When we did an analysis of the data very recently, what we found is there are only 4 records in the entire database where LEAs submitted information to CALPADS telling us that a meeting was pending for a justifiable reason. So you guys are not using or submitting pending records for annual plan reviews or reevaluations. And that is why you're looking at these monitoring reports and you're seeing all of these students in either in the overdue categories. That is one of the primary reasons. So if you get into the practice of submitting pending records as meetings become overdue, you're going to do yourself a huge favor. And I talked about this in the road shows, but no LEAs are doing it. I think maybe one LEA, right? Because Joe, it is 4 records, right? That's what we saw.
Yes, that's correct. A couple of the questions, Brandy, by the way, are asking, how do you submit the pending records? Just a FYI.
Yeah, that's a great question. And guess what, folks? I've got some slides in here that are going to show you exactly how to do it. Okay, so just hold that thought. Okay, our next scenario is, in this case, we have 2 records. We have the annual that was done on January 14th, 2023. And then we have a pending record that the LEA submitted up on January 3rd, 2024. And in this case, the meeting delay code was blank. Well, the meeting delay code was probably blank because at this point on January 3rd, 2024, the meeting wasn't actually late. Okay, so that's probably why it doesn't have a delay code. But unfortunately, now it is March 5th, 2024. So we're comparing the last plan review, which was January 14th, 2023, to the as of date. And it is late, and the meeting delay code is blank, meaning there is no justifiable reason for, or at least that appears in CALPADS, for this meeting being late. So that is why this particular record would show up in the overdue plan review. And then the final scenario is an initial evaluation that was held on January 14th, 2023. Well, again, we expect an annual plan review 365 days from that initial evaluation, and there is not a subsequent annual plan review. Therefore, this is 365 days, over 365 days from the as of date, and this will show up in overdue plan review, no pending record. All right, next, overdue reevaluation. Very, very similar to the plan reviews, except now we're looking at 3 years from the as of date. So this will show up in overdue reevaluation, no pending record, because the last reevaluation was done on January 14th, 2021. Meeting delay code is blank. We know it's a reevaluation because the evaluation type code 40 is in this field. And the meeting date is 3 years from the report as of date. So here we have 2 records. We know the last plan review was held on January 14th, 2021, and there was a pending record submitted on January 14th, 2024, but the meeting delay code indicates that it was late without cause. So therefore, this shows up as an overdue plan review with pending record. Third scenario is we had a reevaluation on January 14th, 2021. Pending record was submitted as of January 3rd. There is no meeting delay code in here, okay? So what we're looking at is the last reevaluation date as compared to the report date, and this will show up in the overdue plan with pending record category. And Stephen, I see you raise your hand, so I am going to, I'm going to allow you to speak. There you go, Stephen. So if you have something to add, please.
Totally accidental. I was looking at the Q&A.
Oh, that's okay. All right. Well, if you have anything to, Stephen Rogers is also part of the data evaluation analysis team, and he is joining us here today.
Sorry, boss.
No, that's okay. All right, and then finally, the last scenario, again, Part B initial evaluation, we expect a subsequent reevaluation within 3 years. So in this case, the report is comparing that initial evaluation meeting date to the as of date, and it has exceeded 3 years. So this shows up in overdue reevaluation, no pending record. All right, so let's move on to the late categories. And I will pause for questions in just a minute, by the way, folks, because there's a lot of them. So meetings that were held late. These are meetings that at one point were overdue, but they have since been held. And so there's two categories. The first is plan review held late, and the next one is reevaluation held late. So the logic into putting students into these categories is it basically looks at the meeting dates between the two most recent records within each category. So it's going to look at the two most recent plan review records or the two most recent reevaluation records, and it determines if the most recent meeting was held late. Okay, one caveat is that this is excluding meetings held prior to September 20th, 2023. And the reason that data is significant is because that's when the new SPED redesign went live. And so we didn't want it to, we didn't want kids that had meetings prior to that show up in these categories because the number of lates that would have been in these categories based on the SPED file data creation would have been enormous. Okay, so just know that there is that little caveat. Also, what's important to remember is that students, I don't know if one of you guys, my other panelists, are advancing the slides, but if you could, I don't know if you're to do that. Don't advance the slide. So the students in the held late categories are going to remain in that category until their next meeting is held in a timely manner. Okay, so they're going to persist in that category until their next meeting is held. All right, so I just really quickly wanted to go through some examples of plan reviews held late. Again, we're using that same report as of date of March 5th. Okay, so we've got two meetings. The meeting has been held. This plan review has been held. The meeting delay code is blank, okay? So it's categorized as a plan review held late because the meeting date for the second meeting, February 14th, 2024, was greater than 365 days from the prior plan review meeting. In this next scenario, it's the same two meetings, except the meeting delay code here is late without cause. The reason this shows up as a plan review held late is because it was greater than 365 days from the prior plan review. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out here is all of these are plan reviews held late. Whether or not they're compliant is another issue, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. Okay, the last scenario, there's a Part B initial meeting that was held. Their annual plan review was held on February 14th, 2024. There is a valid meeting delay. This is also considered a plan review held late. A reevaluation. We've got a reevaluation that was held on January 14th, 2021. There was a subsequent reevaluation that was held about a month later. Because it's greater than 365 days from the prior evaluation, it shows up as a reevaluation held late. Same scenario for these two records, except this has a meeting delay code of late without cause. This is greater than 3 years from the prior reevaluation, so it will show up in that late reevaluation category. And then finally, the initial evaluation and a subsequent reevaluation was held about a month late. That's also going to show up as a reevaluation held late because it is 3 years from the initial evaluation date. All right, so let's talk about the good stuff, the timely category. So what are timely meetings? Timely meetings are meetings that were held within those statutory timelines, within 1 year or within 3 years. Meetings that were held late, but they're not late without cause. Okay, so delay code 90 or that meeting delay code is blank. Okay, and then finally, meetings that have not yet been held, but are not late without cause. Okay, so we talked about those pending records. So they're overdue. We haven't held this meeting yet, but there's a valid reason, and we're submitting a pending record telling you what that reason is. And those are considered timely meetings right now. Those will be subsumed under the timely meetings category. So more specifically, the category of timely plan review and reevaluation includes plan reviews held within 365 days or reevaluations held within 3 years. It includes plan reviews or reevaluations held late for reasons other than 90, which is late without cause, or blanked, right? Can't leave it blank. And it also includes plan reviews or reevaluations that are overdue and not yet held, but they're pending for a justifiable reason. Once again, folks, please go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. All right, which categories are considered compliant? Timely, plan review, or reevaluation. Everything in there is considered compliant. Okay, then we've got late plan reviews and late reevaluations. So those meetings that were actually held, but they were held late. They are compliant if they were late for a justifiable reason. And how do we know that? Because the meeting delay code is not 90 and it's not blank for both of those things. All of these categories are considered compliant. Now, which categories are not compliant? Okay, key word here. Anytime you see overdue plan review, if there is a monitoring category that says overdue plan review with or without a pending record, those are considered non-compliant, okay? Now, there are a couple of categories that right now do not show up using the non-compliant filter, which I'll show you in just a second. And those are the two categories at the very bottom. We've got a change request coming that will put those in the non-compliant category. But those are plan reviews that were held late and reevaluations that were held late, where the meeting delay code is 90, which means it was late without cause, or there's nothing in the meeting delay code. It's blank. Okay, so if you have those types of plans where they were held late, meeting delay code 90, or it's blank, after this change request goes into effect, when you run and use the non-compliant yes option, those are going to show up in that category, okay? All right, so with that, I think I'm going to, oh, here's the non-compliant filter, by the way. So in report 1621, when you're looking at the filter options, right down here, you can see it in red, non-compliant, yes, no. So if you select yes, you're going to get all those meetings that fall into the non-compliant category. And then if you filter for no, you get all those that are compliant. All right, so I'm going to pause for questions. Any in particular? Let's see. We'll just start from the top. How often does CDE pull monitoring reports? How often do we pull the monitoring reports? Well, we will be pulling them for the annual determination letters and data to be put into the annual determination letters. So I should tell you that the information that we're putting in the annual determination letters will be based on students that were enrolled on census day. And we pulled their meeting information as of March 1st. So as long as their meetings had been updated in CALPADS by March 1st, those students will not show up on your in your annual determination letters as late meetings. Okay, we will start working with the focus monitoring and technical assistance teams to start doing this on a monthly basis. We just have not started doing it yet, in particular because your initial evaluation and third workday evaluation reports are not yet available in CALPADS, but we will keep you posted. This particular report, though, remember, runs every single night. So you can take a look at it every single night. Okay, Anonymous at 202. When will this report be used for monitoring annual letters? I actually just answered that. So I hope that answered your question. Annual held in September was tabled, not affirmed for future date where the IEP was affirmed. Technically not late. How do I fix this issue? Okay, folks, remember that when we did this SPED redesign, this is so important. You guys are relying on the affirmation process within your IEP systems to send us an indication that you held the meeting, okay? We decoupled in CALPADS meetings from plans. So what that means is if you held the meeting in September, you could send up the meeting record to CALPADS, or you could add it through online maintenance. You can do that without the parent actually agreeing to the plan. You can send up the plan when the parent finally signs it and the plan becomes effective. Okay, that's the one huge change we made in SPED redesign to allow you to do that. Unfortunately, some of you are not taking advantage of that. Okay, so get your meeting information up there as quickly as possible, because those students will show as overdue until you get the meeting information in CALPADS. Okay, Anonymous at 204. The redesign caused an issue with SAFE that has caused numerous meetings not to be reported. While we are working through it, it would be nice not to be penalized. You know, we can certainly work with SAFE to kind of talk about what these specific issues are, but if you could bring them to our attention, send in a service ticket or send in an email to the SPED data support at cde.ca.gov to give us an idea of exactly what the problem was. We do know of a few of them, but, and folks, this isn't really being penalized. We did, you know, have a couple of options in what data sets to use, and we opted for the one that SELPA recommended. So just remember, this is a starting point, right? This is the first year of the redesign. I promise you next year, this will get better. Okay, Meredith is answering Autumn's question. So I'm going to take a couple more, and then I'm going to keep it moving. Anonymous attendee at 210. In regards to late meetings, is there any guidance on when to use 30 parent contacted, did not attend, and backup documentation to support the use of this delay code? If providers wait until 60 days to schedule and parents have an emergency, is it code 30 or 90 late without cause? So this is, I would advise you to actually send in a service ticket on this one, just because we would have to kind of confer internally and then also confer with SELPA on their guidance that they typically give out. So just send in a ticket. Okay, I'll take this last one. So why are you sharing this information 2 days after you pulled the data? Would have been nice to have had it earlier. Technically, folks, if SELPA had their way, we would have actually pulled these data back in January, which is right after the certification deadline. So we do know that the reports didn't become available in CALPADS until February 13th. And so it's been now a couple of weeks that you've had access to the reports. But in reality, folks, the other thing is you've had access to data within your special education data systems that may have given an indication that data needed to be submitted to CALPADS. So at some point, we've got to get the annual determination letters out. We had to decide on a date. We decided on March 1st. We did notify SELPA at state SELPA that was the date we were going to use, rather than pulling the data from early January after the initial certification deadline. Okay. And I'll address some of these other questions in a bit. Okay, so let's get started with the report review. So once you run that report, you go into 1621, you run the report. It is much easier if you actually run this report with no filters applied. Don't run the compliant filter or non-compliant. And we want you to download the report in CSV format. Do not download the report in Excel format, because what it does is it creates all these merged fields, and it's very hard to sort and filter. So I recommend that you download the report in CSV format. Okay, so what are you looking for when you're going through this report review? Number one, you're trying to make sure that the meet records in CALPADS are accurate. And based on some of the comments and questions that I'm answering, I'm hearing that a lot of the information in there is not currently accurate. It's not the same as what's in your IEP system. So what we're looking for is, are students appearing in the correct monitoring category? Are there missing data in CALPADS? Or is the data in CALPADS incorrect? Are the data in CALPADS consistent with what's in your special education data system? And if a student is in that overdue monitoring category, is it really appropriate and truly have the students' meetings not been held? Okay, that's what we're looking for. So tips to keep in mind. And if there's any one slide that I want you to take a screenshot of right now, it's this slide, okay? Number one, no enrollments in CALPADS are necessary for you to submit up meet records for a student, okay? So let's say there's a gap in the student's meeting history. There's a meeting record that's not in there, except I didn't conduct the meeting. It was the prior LEA that conducted the meeting. How am I going to get the record in there? Well, the SPED redesign allows you to do that because we understand that it's very hard when you're depending on another district when that district has already transferred you their IEP record. Okay, so you can submit up a meet record, tell us the meeting date, and you don't have to have an overlapping enrollment. Okay, the second thing is you can also submit up the SWDs record, the Students with Disabilities Status record, as long as the status that you're submitting up is eligible not participating, eligible not enrolled, or not eligible. You do not have to have an overlapping enrollment. So if a student has exited special education and they were exited by a prior LEA and that LEA did not submit up the exit, guess what? You can do it for them. And that student will then drop off of this report. Okay, so these changes we really made because we heard your what is the word? Frustration about how the reports worked last year, how the files worked, and that you had to have ownership of the student at all times, right? And so in these cases, you can actually submit up these meeting records and submit up the Students with Disabilities Status records. So many of you keep asking, well, how do I do that? I have no idea how to add this record. Guess what? I'm going to show you right now. Okay. So we call this online maintenance in CALPADS. Online maintenance is essentially where you can go directly into CALPADS, you can look up a specific student, and you can add a record directly into CALPADS and post it in CALPADS without having to send that record from SAFE or Cyrus or Welligent or WebIEP, okay, through the APIs. So step one, you got to search for the student. So you need to add a meeting record for a student. So I'm going to do a little quick search. On the CALPADS homepage in the left navigation bar, you'll see the quick search field. You type in the student's SSID and you click the little green arrow, okay? So next is to open the special education meetings modal. So what you're going to see when you search for that student is all of the associated information and containers containing information for that student. And you're going to look for the container that's labeled special education meeting, and you're going to click the little caret that's right next to the words special education meeting. And then you want to add a new record. So you're going to click add new record right there. Okay, so next, you've got to enter the data. So this is what it looks like. Okay, you want to make sure you enter all of the required information. So first, you want to complete all the required fields. Those are fields that are marked with an asterisk. So academic year ID, local special education student ID, reporting SELPA. When I captured this screenshot, just keep in mind I'm a state level user, and so a lot of the reporting LEA and SELPA information is not populated, but for some of you, it will already be pre-populated, okay? So complete all of the required fields. Next, you want to populate the meeting date if it was held, if the meeting was held, or if the meeting has not been held yet and it's pending, then you would populate the pending as of date. Okay, what's really important about these two fields is you can't populate something in both of them at the same time. It's either the meeting date, if the meeting's been held, or if it hasn't been held, the pending as of date. Typically, the pending as of date is the date you're submitting up this record. So if I knew that a meeting was late and it's been scheduled and it's pending, I'm going to go ahead and type in a pending as of date of March 5th, 2024. And then I could also tell you in the next step why that meeting was delayed. Okay, so I could add the delay code if it was overdue. The next thing you want to do is populate the meeting activities. So in this meeting, if it's been held, or in whatever type of meeting that's pending, you would select the meeting activity. So if it's a plan review, you're going to select the meeting activity review indicator, yes. If it's an evaluation, a reevaluation, you're going to select meeting activity evaluation type code 40. Okay, there are meetings, as you both know, that can be both. Okay, so if you hold them both at the same time, then you want to select plan review indicator yes, and evaluation type code 40, and that'll tell us that the reevaluation and the annual happen at the same time. And then finally, you want to populate the parental involvement facilitation code. Okay, so if it's necessary, if the meeting's been held. The one thing that I did want to remind everybody though is your special education meeting date and your pending as of date are going to drive the selection of the academic year field. Okay, so if I'm entering in a historical meeting from the 22-23 academic year, I'm going to need to adjust this academic year ID to 22-23. Excuse me. The other thing that I wanted to point out also is that if it is a reevaluation and if that meeting's been held, you're also going to have to populate the outcome of that meeting. So are they, do they have continued eligibility, or were they determined to be non-eligible after that meeting? The last thing you're going to do is click post. Okay, then that file is sent into the queue for processing, but typically records added through online maintenance get posted relatively quickly. Okay, so the next piece of this is the actual review of the report. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I actually downloaded a monitoring report, and I stripped out all of the identifying information for the school and the students. So what I'd like to do is show you exactly how to go through some of these reviews. So I'm going to be covering all of this information by actually taking you through the spreadsheet. So let me share. Here we go. All right, so what we're looking at here is the downloaded CSV file for SELPA number 1. In this case, LEA number 1. So first thing we want to do is filter for all overdue categories. Okay, folks, so we're looking for overdue monitoring categories. So I'm going to scroll over in this document, and I'm going to look here. It's in column Q. Okay, so if you don't know how to apply filters to Excel, you go to the Data tab in Excel, the Data tab, and you click the Filter button right here. Okay, so if I unclick it, it removes the little arrows. If I click it, it creates these little arrows. So what that allows you to do is filter the data within each column. So I'm going to look at monitoring categories. So I want to look at overdue meetings. So anything with the word overdue. I'm going to click these two. I'm going to click OK. And I see all of my overdue meetings. But what I want to do is I also want to sort them by monitoring category, right? So I want to see all my overdue plan reviews together. And then I also want to see all of my overdue reevaluations together. So I'm going to hit sort. And I'm going to say sort by first monitoring category. Okay, and I want that in, ascending order. And then I also want to sort by the days elapsed since meeting. Okay, so I want to look at the days elapsed. It's going to tell me how old the record is. In this case, I want to look at the oldest record. So I'm going to sort in descending order. So this shows me, in this case, my oldest overdue plan review with no pending record. Okay, so it means the most recent record in there is 3 years old, and this is for an annual plan review. So there's something going on with this particular student. Okay, so the things that you want to check for, I'm just going to toggle back to my PowerPoint here. The things you want to check for here are missing records in CALPADS, missing meeting records in CALPADS. So if you look in your special education data system, do you see that a more recent meeting was held in SACE or Cyrus or Welligent? If so, you need to get that meeting information up to CALPADS. If it was after July 1st, 2023 or after, you can send that transaction through the API. However, if it's prior to that, if it's a historical meeting, you're going to have to enter that meeting via online maintenance, okay? And I just showed you how to do that. Next, you're going to check for students who exited special education. So the fact that a student hasn't had a meeting in 3 years might be an indication that the student actually exited special education and maybe exited at a prior district, but that exit hasn't been reported. So if the student's been exited, as I told you before, you can actually add a SWDs record. You can add a status record. And the process in which you do that is almost exactly the same way that you enter meeting information, except you select the SWDs, Students with Disability Status container, and click Add New Record, okay? And you could add it there. Next, you want to, and this is a big one, folks. This is a very, very big one. There's an incorrect enrollment exit reason reported in CALPADS, okay? So as I mentioned before, students that were exited with an E155, which means I finished out the year and I'm expected to return the next year, or E156, which says I completed grade 12, but I'm going to expect it to return as a fifth-year senior. That's basically what those are, okay? If the student's last exit code is one of those students will continue to appear on the report. So how do you get them off? Number one, you talk to your SIS or CALPADS administrator and ask them to review those students and update their exit codes accordingly. Oftentimes those kids have gone to private schools, they've moved out of state. In some cases, they may have dropped out. They may have moved out of the country. Okay, so you need to make sure that those enrollment exit codes are updated. But if you cannot get them to do that, another option is that you can send up an SWDs record, a SWDs record, with a status of eligible, not enrolled, which basically means the student is eligible, but they're no longer enrolled in my district, and there's no subsequent enrollment. So you have a couple of options there. Next thing you want to check for is this meeting pending, right? So is this meeting overdue, but is it pending, and we just haven't submitted a pending record for the plan review or the reevaluation? Folks, I know this is manual work, but it will save you time if you get into the process of doing this on a routine basis. You don't have to wait monthly to do this. You could do this on a weekly basis. Do we have any kids whose IEPs are overdue? Why are they overdue? Submit the pending record. Literally, it takes 5 minutes, if that, to do. Okay, and then when you submit that pending record, if there's a justifiable reason, you just put the meeting delay code, and guess what? They move out of that category on the report. And then finally, the meeting records that are not submitted to CALPADS. So if the meeting has been held, make sure you send that transaction up to CALPADS, okay? And if appropriate, make sure you populate a meeting delay code if that meeting was actually held late. If you're having issues with your specific special education vendor where there's every indication that the record was accepted in CALPADS and you're seeing that in your special education data system, but the record actually isn't posted, you need to go back to your vendor and ask what's going on. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to look for meetings with no delay code. So I'm going to toggle back to my spreadsheet here. Okay, and I'm going to do, I'm looking for something different here. So I want to remove the previous filters that I had. Or select all. Okay, so in this case, the monitoring category I'm looking for is plan review held late and reevaluation held late. Okay, so what am I looking for here? Remember that I talked about compliant and non-compliant meetings. So plan reviews and reevaluations that are held late, but they don't have a meeting delay code populated, or the meeting delay code is 90, those are going to result in non-compliant meetings, okay? So here, I want to look for blanks. Oops, excuse me. I want to filter for those that are late without cause and those with no meeting delay code, okay? A lot of these have no meeting delay code, and they were held late. What does that tell me? I have to make sure, number one, that meeting delay code is populated within my special education data system. And if it is, I need to send that transaction up to CALPADS. Okay, I'm going to toggle back to my PowerPoint here. All right, so check within your special education data system. If the meeting delay code is populated, resend that transaction. If it isn't populated, populate the meeting delay code and then resend the transaction to CALPADS. The other option, again, is to go directly into CALPADS in online maintenance and edit the existing record and add the meeting delay code there. That's all you have to do. And that, again, takes about 1 minute to do. All right. The next thing that you're going to look for on these reports are transferring students that are on active IEPs. Remember, these reports are updated every single day, which means every time your CALPADS administrator submits enrollment to CALPADS, this report gets updated. If that student had a eligible and participating status in CALPADS and you haven't submitted up a plan record for that student, they're going to show up on this report, but they're going to show up with a different SELPA. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll go back to my spreadsheet here. So again, we want to remove all prior filters. So we're going to get all of the data back in here, all of the monitoring categories. And what we're going to look at here is, in this case, this is SELPA number 1's report that we're looking at, or an LEA that's in SELPA number 1. But we want to look for SELPA codes that are other than 8888, right? So let's look at all these. What's going on here? Well,
we can't see your Excel, Brandy.
Oh, you can't see it. Oh, sorry about that. All right, let me do it again. Thanks, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what we're looking at is the SELPA code field. And this report, this district happens to be in SELPA 8888, but we're looking for any SELPA other than 8888. We're looking at these here, and it looks like there are 3 kids in here that have enrollments at your LEA that have statuses of eligible and participating, but guess what? Your district hasn't submitted a plan record for them. Okay, so this is a really easy way to find these kids on a regular basis, every day, at least once a week. Okay, so anybody that had to deal with SCNR 606 F1 in fall, and as end of year approaches, you're going to have to deal with SCNR 606 E4 for end of year 4. Okay, this is a really quick way right now on a regular basis to make sure that you have plan records submitted up for your LEA for students that are transferring in on active IEP. Okay, you don't have to wait for the CUME file. If a student has an eligible and participating in status, they're on an active IEP, and your LEA needs to submit up a plan record for them. Okay, so if you haven't adopted the plan, make sure you adopt the plan in your special education data system and send up a plan record to CALPADS with an effective date as of the first day of enrollment in your LEA. All right, and the last thing we want to do is look for potentially inaccurate meeting delay codes that could put a particular meeting into the non-compliant category. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is go back to my spreadsheet here. And again, I'm going to remove all the prior filters. I'm looking at all the records. Okay, so I want to look for meetings that have a meeting delay code of 90. Okay, so 90 means it was late without cause. So I'm only going to select 90. Okay, the other thing that I want to do, that you'll notice a lot of these kids here, if you look at the evaluation type, a lot of these kids are kids that were initially evaluated. Very likely the late without cause was because the student was not evaluated within 60 days of initial evaluation or by their third birthday. And these meeting delay codes are fine. It's just that for purposes of this report, when we're looking at late plan reviews and reevaluations, this meeting delay code in most cases does not count for this report. It will count for the initial evaluation and third birthday report, but most of these kids are still timely at this point. So what I want to do is I want to filter out all of the Part B initial evaluation meetings. Okay, so what that's going to leave me with is those kids, those plan reviews, so meeting activity plan review indicator equals true, right, which is yes. So these are plan reviews that are listed as late without cause. Okay, so I want to make sure that this is a valid code. Now, in some cases, let's look at the monitoring category that these fall in. Okay, you'll notice that a lot of these fall into the category of timely plan review or reevaluation meeting. So what that tells me is this late without cause is not right. So if it's timely, if it was held in a timely fashion, you shouldn't have put a meeting delay code of 90 late without cause. And you can actually go in and remove that delay code in your IEP system, or you can remove it directly within CALPADS. The ones that we might want to pay attention to, though, are these. Plan review held late. Okay, so the meeting happened, the plan review was held, but it was held late, and the reason was late without cause. You want to make sure that that's actually the reason. If in fact it was, that it was late without cause, it is what it is. But you want to make sure you verify that, because ultimately these meetings are considered non-compliant. Okay. All right. So resources and support. As I showed you before, there is a very comprehensive Report 16.21 mapping guide that CSIS put together. We also have frequently asked questions. And then as we roll out trainings, especially when we launch our new monitoring report for initial evaluations not held within 60 days and third birthday evaluations, you want to get that training information in a timely manner. Please sign up for the SPED support listserv. You would send an email to subscribe-calpads-sped-sped-sped-cde.ca.gov. Okay, I know that was a lot. I hope it was helpful, but there's a lot of questions in here. I'm gonna try and get through these. We have about 23 minutes to get through these questions, so I'm gonna try and get through as many as I can. My staff and I will work on providing answers for the remainder of these questions, and we will send them out to all of the participants. Okay, let's start at the very top. So if a parent declines the triennial assessment, then what do we do? I believe that there is an option for within the meeting delay code for a parent. Let me look. I've had the meeting delay codes up all day. Let's see. I believe there's a meeting delay code 10, parent refused to consent. Joe, can you tell me whether or not, I know it's in the valid code combos and it's valid for the triennial assessment.
Right.
But
I'll just post the valid code combo there on that question.
perfect. But I guess my point is, if the parent refused to consent to the assessment, that's a valid delay. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. How do we add pending records? Okay. Hopefully I answered that question for you. Knowing that it typically takes a week or two to affirm and send the meeting transaction in CALPADS, why use the 365 days as the baseline? You're going to capture many late meetings that were actually held on time. So remember, these reports are ongoing. Okay. Now, having said that, please also remember that at some point we're going to resume those monthly pools for the focus monitoring and technical assistance teams. We have been in conversations, and Joe, if you have anything to add to this, please feel free. We have been in conversations. We have heard what you're saying about the time that it takes to actually get that data submitted up to CALPADS and posted. It takes about 2 weeks to affirm. So we have had conversations that when we start doing those monthly polls, what we will be doing is pulling the data 2 weeks later, looking back at students whose meetings should have been held by 2 weeks prior to that. So we have heard you on that. And when we resume those reports going out to FMTA, that's what we intend to do.
That is correct, Brandy. And we actually use 366 days, actually, if you're overdue. So you're actually one more day late. That actually would actually give you a little bit of a allowance there.
Right. Okay, Nellie at 218. On Service Tracker, when there's a delay of a meeting, where should those service minutes between meetings be added? Nellie, I cannot answer this question. We're not familiar with Service Tracker, so you might want to check with your vendor. Tammy Medeiros, how much trouble do we get into using the 90 late without cause? Well, those meetings are listed as being non-compliant. They do show up in your annual determination letters. I don't know if that's trouble, but they do show up in your ADL. Anonymous attendee 220. Would it be possible to have a walkthrough on how to post pending as of date? So again, the slides that I just took you through are exactly how to post the pending record, how to post a meeting record that occurred. If you need more direction than that, please feel free to reach out to our team and we can help you. And folks, by the way, I can't actually walk you through the CALPADS application because we're working with live data here and real students. And so, I would have to look at the real SSID. There is the opportunity to do in staging, but staging typically gets refreshed on a regular basis. And so I would have probably had to go and create the SSID right before this. And I just did not have the time to do it. Katie Babcock, can you re-explain pending records so it's not confused with pending eligibility status? Sure. When we talk about pending records in CALPADS, what we mean is you are being proactive. And that's one of the other things. By the way, these pending records, last year, you guys actually asked this. Why, Department of Education, why can't you allow us to tell you why a meeting is late before the meeting actually happened? Because historically, you had to actually wait until the meeting happened, and then you could tell us that it was delayed. But as many of you know, sometimes those meetings get dragged out and dragged out and dragged out, and the IEP doesn't get affirmed sometimes until months later. And so months later, we're finding out that the meeting was actually held on time, or that it was late for valid reasons. Okay, so the pending records that we're talking about here is you as an LEA being proactive and telling the state, we realize this meeting is overdue, but here's why. This is a reason. We have a valid reason for this meeting being late. You can be proactive. You don't have to wait until the meeting is held. So that's what we mean by submitting up the pending records. I should also tell you that in some of the special education data systems, some of them do send pending records through the API. You need to check with your specific vendor, okay, on which pending records, pending initials, pending plan reviews, pending reevaluations, but you should check with your specific vendor because some of them actually send them up through the API. Not very many because there were only 4 in this database, but some of them do. Okay, anonymous at 220. How can we correct an error? We have a student that is showing up as overdue reevaluation, but it appears that the box was not checked off of the IEP. So again, if you can correct the transaction within your special education data system and submit that transaction to CALPADS, again, the caveat being that it has to be a meeting that occurred this academic year. If it's historical, you're going to need to go into CALPADS to submit the meeting information. If the student is already eligible, there is no pending record for reeval. Pending is only used for students that are being assessed for the first time. And what you're talking about is a function of SAFE, by the way. So SAFE only has a pending meeting type and pending plan type for initial evaluation. And they are going to continue to do that. I'm telling you that in CALPADS, we accept pending meetings for reevaluation as well as plan reviews, but you have to manually enter them if you're a SAFE user. And as far as the other SPED data systems, you want to confer with your vendor on how that's done within those systems. Maria Aldana at 222. So if we add a pending record without a code 90, will that student come out on the report? So you can add a pending record telling us the meeting is pending. If there's a blank in there, then and the meeting becomes overdue as of the report date, then the student's going to come out as overdue. If it's a justifiable reason, so if you've added a meeting delay and it's anything other than 90, then they won't show up in any of the overdue categories. They will be compliant meetings, and sometimes they're actually considered timely. Okay, Pavel Gladish at 222. How much time do you give to process IEP transactions to CALPADS before they show up late on this report? So again, this report is refreshed daily. It's not going to work on that 2-week time frame that we talked about. Now, with respect to giving it 2 weeks to process, when we start, your FMTA consultants start reaching out about these late meetings, we start giving those reports to the focus monitoring and technical assistance teams on a monthly basis, we are going to give you that 2-week buffer. Okay, we will start doing that, but that process has not begun yet. Okay, Jenny Ibarra. Does anyone who uses SAFE know how these pending transactions get triggered? CALPADS person here, so limited in my knowledge. Again, SAFE does not send pending transactions for reevaluations or plan reviews through the API. They will do it for initials, but you have to create a meeting type pending and a plan type of pending. Anonymous at 223. What if we have documented the meetings that were scheduled and missed by parent? If it is late, then what code do we mark reason for being late? So I would strongly advise you, I believe Joe posted a link and if in our CALPADS code sets document, look at the meeting delay codes, folks. Also, he, I believe, posted a link to the valid code combination. It tells you which delay codes are valid for which type of meeting. So in this case, if the parent was contacted but did not attend, there's a meeting delay code for that. So please take a look at the CALPADS code sets document for those meeting delays. And I will actually show you that on my screen here. Okay, so this is the CALPADS code sets document. These are the valid delays. So if the parent was contacted, did not attend the annual, you would use meeting delay 30. Stacy at 223. The 1621 record is not accurately reflecting pending records. Pending records show in the student level data, but they are not showing in the 1621 report. So Stacy, again, on March 1st, when we ran the data, there were only 4 records in the entire data set. So if you've been submitting pending records since last Friday and you're not seeing them reported or you're not seeing them reflected in the report correctly, please send in a service ticket and we can take a look. Anonymous at 223, do you recommend that the district with the late report the delay code? The new district cannot update the old meeting showing late when it was not theirs and they do not have the reason for delay. So are we to contact the prior district to add their delay reasons? If a student has newly transferred to you and that meeting has been delayed, the easiest thing for you to do is submit a pending record. Okay, so there's a couple of things. So let's say the meeting hasn't been held. Student transfers into your district. If you submit up a pending record because you're getting ready to schedule that meeting because it has not been held, then you would submit up a pending record with a meeting delay, you'll look here on the screen, of transfer, right? This kid transferred in, the meeting was already late, so we're gonna tell you that because they transferred, that's why the meeting is late. Do you have to go back then and update the prior LEA's meeting record? No, you don't. Now, if the meeting has been held, okay, it's been held, that LEA did not put a meeting delay code in there, it's clearly late, and now the student is with you. Really, the only advice I have for that is to contact the LEA. The LEA is not responsive, contact the SELPA to try and get the reason that the meeting was delayed, and then update the record. You can ask them to do it, but again, you can also do it. Actually, Meredith, that's a good question. Can LEAs edit meeting records if they didn't submit them?
I believe that I'll have to test it. I believe they can. We will get back to everyone. We'll have to double check that.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one. Okay, Anonymous at 223. What's the point of entering a pending as of date with delay code 90 if we still get dinged? Might as well leave it blank. That is your option, folks. You know, one way or another, it's gonna be non-compliant. Okay. Anonymous at 224. It is not realistic to have district uploading pendings for students who are not initial. Again, I think one of the issues is this report is new, and there are lots of kids whose meetings haven't been updated or pending records haven't been submitted. And you're right. For right now, if you've got hundreds and hundreds of kids that are overdue and whose meetings haven't been held, and you need to submit pending records, I would agree with you. That is really a lot of work to have to manually go in and enter these pending records for every single student. You're right. But I'm thinking further ahead. Let's say you get all these cleaned up and you actually develop a process locally where in your dashboards, in your IEP systems, it tells you when a meeting is overdue. It tells you. And that's a trigger for a process locally so that someone just has to go in and enter the records. That way you're not doing it for hundreds of kids. You're doing it for maybe 1 or 2 kids a week, okay? So if you build it into your regular processes, much like you had to build into your regular processes, sending transactions up to CALPADS, it's not going to be as much of a heavy lift, folks, and your monitoring reports are going to look a lot better. So I get it. It's a heavy lift right now, but if you get through this initially, establish a process, things on that report are going to look much, much better.
All right, Brandy, I have an answer to your
Yes.
question. Yes. So no, you cannot update a meet record with a different delay reason code if it had been submitted by a different LEA. We get an invalid submitter if you were to do it via batch, and then via
Got
OM, you're not allowed to even hit submit. There's no submit button.
So if that LEA did not populate a meeting delay code, they are going to need to populate it. So yes, that's a little bit cumbersome. Hopefully you don't have too many of those, but you will have to contact the other LEA. Okay, Alvin, at 225, CalPADS report is showing I have records that are overdue plan review and overdue reevaluation with no pending. However, those meetings were held. How do I fix that? Okay, if the meetings were held, and again, they were held on July 1st, 2023 or after, you need to go into SAFE and resend the transaction, okay? If in SAFE, it's showing that the transaction was accepted by CalPADS and you're confused as to why it's not posted in CalPADS, you need to contact SAFE for further guidance. But again, you also have the option, if you can't resend the transaction because it's either a historical record or you can't get the transaction to be accepted in CalPADS, you can actually manually enter those records in CalPADS. Anonymous at 227. Many issues are because of clerical errors or due to teachers who are either brand new or overworked and don't have time to get everything scheduled ahead. In today's world, expecting every IEP to be on time to date seems very unrealistic. So although, folks, it may seem unrealistic given, you know, the school environment, it is a federal law that we have to enforce. Okay, so this is coming down from federal IDEA law that students with IEPs have their meetings on time. So unless it changes at that level, unfortunately, CDE has to monitor this. So Maria Vega, Q1. We had a student that was a preschooler with us in 2021. They left for private school and have returned with us as a first grader. A triennial private school follow-up was done in 22-23 that was not reported. Sorry, my screen jumped here. We did a plan adoption at the beginning of this school year, but the student is showing up as overdue plan review, no pending record. So Maria, we probably have to take a look at this specific student and the SSID. So if you could just send in a service ticket with the SSID, that will help, and we can kind of give you a game plan from there on. Deborah Cooper Kelly at 229. What date should be used in the pending as of date? So the pending as of date is typically the date that you're telling us that the meeting is pending. So if a student's meeting became overdue last week and you're telling us today, March 5th, the pending as of date would be March 5th. The only caveat with the pending as of date is it can't be in the future. It has to be on the current date or prior to the current date. Jenny Ricard. So the report currently only gives us accurate information from 9/21/23 forward. No, the report is accurate, but keep in mind that when we did the SPED redesign, we had to take that SPED record, we had to create records, these 4 new file types based on that old record. And the logic was extremely complex. I mean, the document was at least, I want to say like 10 pages on the logic to create these new records. In some cases, there were loopholes in the logic and the meetings actually didn't get created. But also the other thing that I want you to keep in mind is we only created records for the most recent meetings. We didn't actually go back and create the most recent and the prior annual in some cases, which is why the report only counts students as overdue in some cases for plan review held late if there was more than one meeting within the academic year to look at. Because in some cases, we didn't create the historical records, right? So you don't have those two records to compare. So that's what the 9/21/23 date references. I hope that explained it. Okay, so Irfan marks, what would constitute cause for a late IEP? Unable to get parent consent. So again, I'm sharing my screen right now. All of these meeting delay codes, with the exception of 90, are considered justifiable reasons for a meeting being held late. That's in the CALPADS code sets document. Anonymous attendee. Our attorneys have advised that date to date 2/14/23 to 2/14/24 is compliant with the law and is not late. Please advise. So if the meeting has not been held on 2/14, so many of the examples that I'm assuming that you're talking about my examples. So if the meeting has been held exactly 1 year, then you're okay, right? It's once it's 1 day after. The reports are actually looking for timely meetings are those that are held within 365 days. After that, if it exceeds 365 days, so 366 or greater, then it shows up as non-compliant. And Meredith, if I'm saying anything incorrectly, please correct me.
Nope, that was correct. I did want to add, there was a good note that someone had pointed out about leap year this year. And so going back, we did not account for leap year. So it is 365 days. So this year, if it does span February 29th, 366 days would still be considered timely, but unfortunately that's not showing up on the report. So we are going to be updating their 1621. So we will try to account for that in their next CR.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, folks, it is 3:30 and we still have about 75 open questions. So I want to honor everybody's time. I do realize that you have lots of questions, and so what I'm going to have my team do is go back and once we get the question and answer transcript, we will get answers for any questions. And Milo, if you could just kind of make a mental note that questions beginning at 2:30 p.m. that didn't have answers, we'd like to get the answers back out to the group. So we will try and do that within the next week. We'll get these questions answered for you, and then we will send them out to all of the meeting participants. So one more time, if you did not have the opportunity to download the PowerPoint, it can be downloaded. There are several links that were posted within the chat, but I'll post it here one more time for good measure. So you can download a copy of the presentation at that CDE box link. Otherwise, if you have other questions that you did not get in the Q&A that you need answered, please feel free to forward them to speddatasupport@cde.ca.gov. Thank you guys for taking the time. It sounds like we've got a lot of really, really good feedback here. Lots of really great questions. This is a brand new report, so we will be making refinements as we go along. But thank you so much for attending today. I hope that it was helpful. And again, this is being recorded. So once the transcript is cleaned up, we will get that posted probably within the next couple of weeks. And we will send an email out through the SPED Data Support listserv, letting you guys know that it has been posted. Okay, so thanks. Also, thanks for all the folks from CSIS and all the folks from DEA that attended today. And hopefully we will be chatting with you guys soon. Thanks so much.